In the evening of April 1912, the world just witnessed the world's biggest and largest ship go under. Written all over the newspapers were written the famous words of Titanic disaster at sea. She was the largest ship to have ever sunk there at the time. Little did they know, 4 years later, the HMHS Britannic would take that title and be forgotten throughout history. This is your host Rickletoons from the channel you know as Zom Games, and today I will be doing a Britannic wreck analysis. By far the largest passenger liner to have ever sank next to the RMS Titanic, Britannic currently resides at the bottom of the Kea Channel near Greece. Unlike her sister, however, Titanic, which currently resides in the crushing depths of 12,500 feet or 2.5 miles down, Britannic settled in a more shallow environment. This made her by far the biggest artificial reef in the world, and often the most dived wrecked since she rested around at 395 feet deep. Remarkably, she seems very intact compared to Titanic's wreck, but is that really the case? Not really. Her hull is currently in much worse shape than it looks. The deterioration of the hull is hidden by the layer of coral which currently blankets all parts of the ship, including the decking. This layer of coral has anchored its base in the iron hull of Britannic, causing significant hull damage. At this point, the integrity of the hull is as bad as Britannic's sister ship, but unlike her sister ship, Britannic would last around 100 years longer than Titanic will, but that is just being hopeful. As for the question of raising the wreck itself, I already made a video on that, link in the description. Apart from the hull, however, most of Britannic's interior and exterior elements is remarkably preserved, including the funnels, which now lay on its side on the ocean floor, which is now flattened like a pancake. Moving on onto the bow, a massive gash greets us. This gash wasn't made by a mine explosion, but instead of the ship sinking. Since Britannic was longer than the sea was deep, her bow rammed against the bottom of the sea floor, causing it to crush the shell plating near the bridge. Speaking of the bridge itself got ejected during her final plunge. However, her bridge wing still remained stationary, still waiting for her crew to scan the sides of the vessel for any boats that would load her up with more wounded soldiers. These elements of the ship now remains unused. Moving to the boat deck, the lifeboat cranes and the lifeboat davits are still swung out, where they would have lowered Violet just down to Britannic's sinking waterline. Aside from those, Britannic's manganese propellers are still remarkably preserved. Hell, they could probably even be unscrewed by professional divers and lifted up to the surface and cleaned up by pressure washing. To conclude this YouTube video, most of Britannic's interior and exterior elements is remarkably more preserved than Titanic as a whole. But what would be the future of Britannic's wreck? Well, Britannic's wreck would last a bit more longer than Titanic, but of course, she will rust away in the bottom of the Aegean Sea. Her propellers, however, will remain a bit longer down there since they are completely made out of manganese, which is really hard to deteriorate. As for Britannic's stern is also very remarkably preserved. It's not blown out like Titanic's stern, and it could definitely still hold up for the time to come, especially against sea currents. Overall, Britannic is a popular dive site for both maritime historians and divers alike. But that's where I have to end this video, as my knowledge on Britannic's deterioration is rather limited. So I hope I managed to give you an insight on how bad the deterioration of Britannic really is. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And I'll see you on the next one.